Today we're going to talk a little bit about what this class is about. Make sure this is the class you're really interested in taking. I'm going to give a really brief overview of iOS. I'm going to assume that most people interested in this class already are familiar with iOS. Maybe they have an iPhone in their pocket or an iPad and they already know what's going on. They just want to be able to develop applications for it. Then I'm going to, at the end, cover two actual lecture topics that you're going to need to know for this quarter. The first is basically the design paradigm we're going to use to build applications. And then I'm going to give you a little peek, a little taste of the language that we're going to use, which is Objective-C, an object-oriented version of C. So yes, you have to learn another language. But for you computer science, CS 193P, at this level, CS, another language should just be nothing. So we will cover that. And it's not an intent to teach you Objective-C in 20 minutes. It's more just to give you an exposure. All right. So what will I learn in this course? Well, number one thing you're going to learn is how to build cool apps. All right. iOS as a platform, it's really easy to build really powerful applications in a very short amount of time because it has really powerful infrastructure for building applications. The things you build they live in your pocket. You can whip them out, hey, look at what I built. So that's kind of cool as a developer, not to have something that you have to wait for it to show up in stores or people download. You can show it to them right there. If you do come up with an application that you really like, it's really cool, it's really easy to market and distribute it, right? Just throw it on the App Store, bam, money starts pouring in. And lastly, it's a very because of these above things, it's a very vibrant developer community. There's a lot going on in iOS, a lot of startups out there doing cool things from games to personal productivity stuff. And so it's a lot of fun to be working in this environment. And the second thing you're going to learn in this course is real-life object-oriented programming. Okay? So maybe a lot of you have experience with real-life programming. Maybe not. You're mostly students, so perhaps not. You all have to have a good experience with object-oriented programming. And so now we're going to combine those and see, so you can see, hey, with this object-oriented programming stuff that I've learned, what's it look like in the real world? Because we're talking about a real-world, very high-volume environment that people are running applications in. And you're going to see what it looks like to develop in that environment. And as part of that, you're not only going to learn how to just build an app, but you're going to learn a lot of computer science-y things. And you'll all have varying amounts of experience coming in here in terms of the CS classes you've taken. But you're going to learn in this class about databases, networking, all kinds of multimedia programming, multi-threading, animation, all these things listed up here. We're going to do all those things in this class. So it's a pretty action-packed class. And it's a really great class if you want to get a real industry kind of feel for what it means to apply all these technologies. Okay? Prerequisites. So the prerequisite for this class, the most important prerequisite is that you must be a competent, comfortable, object-oriented programmer. Okay? Now, I've put up a bunch of object-oriented terms up here. And all these terms should be very familiar to you, okay? If I start talking about a class or how we're going to add an instance variable or we're going to use a protocol to do something, and you're kind of like, what does that mean? Instance variable? I never heard of that. You're in trouble, okay? Because I'm going to assume knowledge of object-oriented programming, okay? So that's really something to be clear of right up front. If you're not comfortable with these terms, if you're haven't had some experience writing object-oriented programming, it's going to be trouble. And specifically, if you've never written an object-oriented program that uses more than a class or two, like I know a lot of CS 106A, the assignments are write a class that has these 5 methods that does something. That's great. You're just learning object-oriented programming. But by the end of CS 106B and certainly into CS 107, it's going to be more like solve this problem using object-oriented programming, and you have to come up with 4 or 5 classes working together to do it. And that's where we are. Okay? We're at the 4 or 5 to even 10 or more classes working together to build an application. All right? So you don't want to be jumping from 0 to 60 in 10 seconds there, and you want to you want to already be at that level where you can put some objects together, understand a little bit about programming interfaces. Okay? Any questions about that? All right. The assignments. In this class, There are 7 weekly assignments. You have 1 week to do them. They are assigned after lecture on Thursday. They are due at the end of the day the next Wednesday, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. They are due, okay? They are individual work only. This is not something where you're going to get together with your friends and say, oh, how are we going to solve this problem? They are not structured as like big projects. So they're weekly assignments that are directly having you do what I'm doing in the lectures and in the demos I do in class that week as homework, okay? I teach the same way every week. I'll tell you about it in lecture. I'll show you by writing some code right here in front of you, and then I'm going to ask you to do it in homework. The same thing 3 times. So everything I present in this class, you're going to see 3 times, those 3 times, okay, over and over every single week. So the homework is individual work for that reason. It's graded on a check plus, or check minus basis. And every homework assignment will have a required task section and an evaluation criteria section, okay? So if you complete all the required tasks as per the evaluation criteria, then you'll get a check. If you do a great job of that, you might even get a check plus. If you don't implement one of the required tasks, or you don't do it in the way the evaluation criteria describes, then you might get a check minus. There is extra credit in every single assignment. I encourage you to bank some extra credit just in case later in the quarter one of the concepts that we introduce is a little hard to understand and maybe you don't do one of the required tasks. Some of that extra credit can flow over and pick you up there. The amount of extra credit varies, and some extra credit things are worth more than others because some of them are really trivial to do, some of them are quite complicated. But all of the extra credit is not just there for extra credit, it all expands upon what you learn in that week, okay? Lateness is the #1 fail factor in this class, okay? If you start getting behind, you're probably done. And that's because these 7 homework assignments all build on each other, okay? Why do I do it that way? 2 reasons. One, if you're building I want you to get to the end of this class and be able to build a significant iOS program. I don't want you to be able to just build toys. I want you to build something real, okay? Well, something real is going to require the amount of code that a few weeks of doing homework assignments will build up to be. So in these 7 assignments, I'm actually only going to have you build 2 applications. One the first 3 weeks, another one the last 4 weeks, okay? Those at the end will be 2 pretty significant applications. Now, the other reason for doing it this way is you have to learn as a real programmer, a real world programmer, to live with your mistakes of the previous week, okay? So you're going to do some things in week 1, you're going to make mistakes, something's not going to work, your TA is going to give you feedback. You're going to have to go back, fix those things, and build on it in week 2. So some people often ask me, hey, can I have the solution, as if there's one solution to any homework, there's not, but can I have a solution for week 1 so I can start on week 2? No, you got to live with your mistakes from week 1 in week 2. All right, so that's why we do the builds. But the problem with the builds is the lateness. If you start getting late on one, now you leave yourself very little time for the next one. That one might start being late, and it just starts shifting out, okay? But I do understand that things come up. You get sick, family emergency, whatever. So you get 3 free late days per quarter. I strongly recommend, of course, that you save them for when you're sick or have a family emergency and not just kind of fritter them away on, I don't want to do that today. You know, if you use more than 3 late days, it'll affect your grade. How much? Kind of depends on the degree. You know, if you're only 1 or 2 late days over, it's not going to kill you. If you're a week or 2 weeks late, which has happened in this class, well, A, you're going to be so far behind, you're just never going to get this material. But B, that's going to have a significant effect on your grade as well. Okay? Any questions about that? And then there's a final project. So the first 7 weeks are these 1-week homework assignments, and then the last 3 weeks you'll be working on a final project, okay? I will accept some teams of 2 here, but I prefer not to. It's quite, first of all, 6 weeks of work is what the scope would have to be. That's a big project, okay? In iOS, you can build a big app in 6 weeks of homework time. So I don't necessarily want to bring such a monster to the table here. Also, it's very difficult if there's 2 of you for me to